Hi, I'm Mark, and welcome to the weekly Outside Views report on German politics. I'm not in Berlin, so it's still an outside view. 1 year after Chancellor Olaf Scholz's speech in the Bundestag, the opposition CDU is accusing him of missed opportunities. The right words from Scholz's speech were not translated into a political program, said CDU foreign affairs expert Roderich Kiesewetter to the German newspaper Augsburger Allgemeine on Monday. A few days after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Scholz announced a change of direction, a Zeitenwende in German foreign and security policy, and a €100 billion special fund to modernize the Bundeswehr. The Bundeswehr has enormous deficits, and the turning point has not yet begun for them, said Kiesewetter. They lost a year and is now more bare than at the beginning of 22. And Kiesewetter is referring to a social media post by Army Inspector Alphonse Mais, who wrote on the day when the war began, "The Bundeswehr, the army that I'm allowed to lead, is more or less blank." And according to Kiesewetter, Scholz assumed in his speech that Russian troops could conquer Ukraine within a few days and then stand at the Polish border. But things turned out differently. When you realized that Ukraine was successfully defending itself, that momentum flagged immediately, said Kiesewetter. Several construction projects of the Bundestag, the federal parliament, are significantly more expensive than originally planned. Parliament Vice President Wolfgang Kubicki from the Liberals admitted this. The expansion of the Marie Elisabeth Lüders house on the banks of the Spree, which belongs to the Bundestag, was initially estimated at €190 million. We are now at €366 million, Kubicki told the magazine Spiegel. Emission control rules would have led to a complete redesign and the replacement of the energy and heating technology. On the opposite side, Luisenblock Ost, where in addition to the Bundestag, buildings, commercial space, apartments, and a trade union building are to be built, there's also a risk of significantly higher costs. Originally, almost €1 billion was assumed for the construction project, said Kubicki, and he said, with the current enormous increases in construction costs, the entire project in the area of the Luisenblock Ost, that means not just for the parliament buildings, could well exceed €2 billion. That would be 100% plus. The Bundestag Vice President rejects doubts about the necessity of the parliamentary buildings, though. The need for space has grown continuously over the past 3 decades, he said. In order to accommodate the administration, other properties would currently have to be rented at high cost, and these costs will disappear once the new buildings are finished. Development Minister Svenja Schulze from the SPD, and my hometown by the way, wants to massively increase the funds for promoting equality in her house with a concept for feminist politics. As can be seen from the guidelines for a feminist development policy, by 2025 more than 90% of the newly committed project funds are to flow into projects that advance equality. In 21 it was about 64%. The concept should be anchored in the cooperation with the partner countries. At least 50% of management positions in the development department should be filled by women. Schulze wants to present the guidelines after the cabinet meeting together with Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock. Both ministers had worked out their concepts in close consultation. An official decision by the cabinet is not required for the implementation of the guidelines, though. The Deutsche Post, the German mail, still has too few post offices in rural areas. As can be seen from a letter from the Federal Network Agency to its advisory board, the supervisory authority was aware of 174 locations in Germany at the end of January that were not occupied despite a government regulation. According to the network agency, there were 140 at the end of December, according to the figures, and the problem has worsened. In relation to the 12,000 mandatory locations that the post office must have nationwide, the deficits are small. The post office has a branch in almost 99% of the locations. The letter from the authorities is, by the way, available to the German press agency. That's why I learned about it. According to an ordinance, there must be at least one branch in every municipality with more than 2,000 inhabitants. With a population of 4,000 or more, a branch in contiguously built-up residential areas may not be further away than 2 kilometers. The federal government is currently preparing a reform of the completely outdated law. Then the specification for the branch network could also be changed. In most cases, post offices are retailers who also have a post office, such as supermarkets or kiosks. The liberal FDP wants to prevent a possible ban on new gas and oil heating systems from 2024. The FDP parliamentary group has no draft ban on oil and gas heating. It will not come to that either, said the FDP parliamentary group leader in the Bundestag, Christian Dürr, to the German newspaper Tagesspiegel on Wednesday. He fears that the ban will further increase construction and rental costs. I think blanket bans are wrong. Instead, we should remain open to technology and ensure that classic heating systems can also be operated in a climate-neutral manner in the future, said Dürr. On Tuesday, a newspaper reported on a draft ban on the installation of new gas and oil heating systems from 2024 forward. They would be replaced by heating systems that are operated with at least 65% renewable energies. The economics and building ministries are working on corresponding law. Details are still open, though. In the coalition agreement, the Social Democrats, the Greens and the Liberals agreed that from 2025 every newly installed heating system should be operated with 65% renewable energy. In March 22, the coalition leaders then agreed that if possible from January 24, every new built-in heating system should be operated in this way. In the dispute over the end of new cars with internal combustion engines planned in the EU from 2035, the Greens have criticized Federal Transport Minister Volker Wissing from the Liberals. Bremen's mobility senator Maike Schäfer from the Greens told the German press agency that Wissing and his Liberal FDP were being pushed by the automobile lobby. There is a compromise paper from the federal government with a test order for e-fuels. Wissing has no mandate to announce that Germany could not agree to a combustion engine exit. Wissing had threatened not to agree to the planned end for new cars with combustion engines in the EU. Wissing said on Tuesday that the EU Commission must deliver and keep promises. Combustion engines will be approved after 2035 if they can be shown to be fueled with synthetic fuels or so-called e-fuels. The Commission should make a corresponding regulation proposal, otherwise Germany would not agree. In the COVID crisis, there have no longer been any mandatory tests for access to health facilities since Wednesday. The mask requirements for employees in medical practices, clinics and care facilities have also been lifted. This is determined by regulation of the Federal Ministry of Health, which came into force on Wednesday. For residents in nursing homes, the mask requirement is therefore also over. The premature relaxation of the provisions in the Infection Protection Act was justified by the stable COVID situation. For visitors to practices, nursing homes and clinics, however, a nationwide mask requirement will remain in place until April 7th. This should continue to protect risk groups in particular. The demand for workers in Germany remains high despite the economic problems. The job index BAX of the Federal Employment Agency was 127 points in February and has thus been practically stable since October last year. In February 22, the index value was 9 points higher at 136 points. That's what the federal agency announced on Tuesday. Compared to the same month last year, the number of jobs fell primarily in information and communication, followed by agriculture and forestry, temporary work, transport and logistics, and other economic services. The demand for labor has tended to decline slightly since early summer last year, but is still at a comparatively high level against the background of economic and political uncertainties, analyzed the federal agency. The Nuremberg authorities will publish their labor market statistics for February on Wednesday, unfortunately after I filmed this. The job index is a seasonally adjusted indicator of labor demand in Germany. The mood among East German companies improved significantly in February. The Business Climate Index for the regional economy rose by 2.1 points to 94.7 points compared to the previous month. That's what the Economic Research Institute IFO announced on Tuesday. While the companies surveyed assessed their situation noticeably better, their outlook for the next 6 months also improved significantly. In the manufacturing sector, the companies rated the business situation somewhat better than in the previous month. Their outlook for the coming 6 months also improved noticeably. In the service sector too, both the values for the assessment of the situation and for business expectations increased significantly. The situation is similar in retail. Here, the companies rated their business slightly better compared to the previous month, as well as their outlook for the coming 6 months. Mixed messages came from the construction industry. While business expectations fell slightly, there was a noticeable increase in the assessment of the situation. And this concludes this week's report on German politics. I'll see you on the next video tomorrow. I'll be back.